All right. Welcome to everyone who has joined me and is still joining. Luis Morales here, health fitness specialist with Exos at Autodesk. 3 p.m. Monday afternoon. Feels really good to kind of get away from the workspace just for a second so we can kind of get some stretching and get some movement, maybe regenerate ourselves, put ourselves in a good shape to work for the rest of the day. Before we get started here, guys, I kind of have a good plan to get into full body stuff, kind of address lots of areas of the body here today. But if you guys feel like there's anything that needs a little bit of extra love for you personally, or just something that needs a little bit extra stretch, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. We can definitely work it into our routine here today. I'll give you guys a second or so to do that, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, let's see. Tanya says neck, headache, shoulders. All right, we definitely have some stuff for the neck in here. What I can add, some shoulder work as well. All right, thank you for that input, Tanya. We'll go ahead and get started here, guys. All right, so what we're gonna start with here, guys, is in a half kneeling position. It might help to kind of have a pillow or something that will make the ground less hard if you're on kind of a hardwood surface like I am. What we're gonna start with here, it's a nice half kneeling position. And I've recovered enough from my biking injury that I can now put my knee on the ground. So big day for me. Let's go ahead and start in half kneeling here. And what we're going to do is alternate in between a hip flexor stretch and a hamstring stretch. So even though this is kind of doing stuff directly around the upper leg and the hip, this will also kind of help our low back out a little bit. So once we get one knee down on the ground, doesn't matter which one, let's go ahead and start by tilting the pelvis back and squeezing that glute of whatever knee that's on the ground. So sometimes it helps to kind of have the hand on there, big glute squeeze. From here, we can kind of tighten up the abs and slightly push the hips forward. Shouldn't need too much push forward to kind of find some tension. And once we do, let's make sure we can kind of breathe in this position. So try and breathe intentionally into that tension that we feel in the front of the hip. Letting that lower rib cage and that belly expand like a balloon. And then as we exhale, some of that tension goes away, but we still want to keep it going. No worries, Tanya. Tanya had to dip out. We'll still keep it going, guys, with the hip flexor stretch. Breathing, squeezing that glute super hard, and breathing into that tension in the front here. Good work, you guys. Keep that tension going with the glute. Let's do one more big breath. Nicely done, guys. Okay, now we can kind of unlock that glute a little bit, shift our weight back onto that knee, and let's go ahead and extend that front leg now. So now we want to kind of straighten out that front leg, let the heel primarily rest on the ground. And from here, what we're going to do is push the hips back a little bit, kind of hinge forward, try and keep our backs as straight as we can. We're reaching for the ankle, the shin, the foot, whatever we kind of have available to us, looking for a stretch in the back of that upper leg in that hamstring area. So again, it's key to breathe in these positions. Let that lower rib cage and that belly expand, just like we did on the hip flexor stretch. As we inhale, that tension might increase just a little bit. If we keep breathing through it, it should subside a little bit. And as we exhale, it'll go down. Good job, you guys. Good job. One more breath. Good. Exhale all that tension. Let's let that front leg bend a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and switch over to the other side. So other knee down now. We're going to start with the same thing, that hip flexor stretch. So let's go ahead and start with that glute. Check in with that glute. Keep the hand on it if you need to. Big squeeze, same side of the knee that's on the ground. We're going to go ahead and push the hips forward just a little bit. Find those core muscles. And we can breathe into the tension in the front of the hip there. Again, letting the lower rib cage kind of expand like a balloon. Letting that belly expand. Good. Keep that glute squeezed. Check in with that glute. One more breath. Good, and as we exhale, we can kind of shift our weight back onto that knee, straighten out that front leg so that the heel is now resting on the ground. Now let's lean forward over it, stretching out that hamstring, and then continuing to breathe, letting that midsection expand with our inhales. Leg is nice and straight here, guys. Just do what you got available to you today. Doesn't have to be a super crazy intense stretch. We just kind of want it to be medium. We want to be able to breathe comfortably in this position. We don't want to be making that kind of wincing pain face. All right, wherever we're at, let's do one more breath. Big inhale. Relaxing exhale. You can come out of that, let that front leg bend. All right, good work. Okay, let's go ahead and come into a kind of a high plank position here, guys. In order to get at this stretch for the back of the hip, it sometimes helps to kind of start in that push-up starting position here, and then we'll go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to start with the left side. So right here, I'm looking like I'm about to do a push-up. I'm going to bring my left leg forward. My ankle is going to rest on the ground. I'm going to try and bring that knee onto the ground as well here, keeping that back leg nice and straight. You can kind of start to rest and sink the hips back. That back leg, knee can kind of come into contact with the ground. From here, we want to sit those hips back down into the ground, looking for a stretch in that left rear hip if you got your left leg in front here. So this might be intense enough for that left rear hip. If you guys want to make it a little more intense and the spine is okay with you, you guys can go ahead and come down to the elbows here. But just like our other stretches, we want to be able to breathe comfortably here. So let's go ahead and go through some breathing. Big, deep belly breaths. Long, relaxing, slow exhales. Again, we're not looking to have this stretch feel like your hip's going to pop out of your socket or something back there is going to tear. It needs to be kind of medium so that we can kind of do more good than we do damage. All right, guys, last breath. Big inhale. Longer exhale. Okay, let's go ahead and come back to that plank position, or that high plank position, I should say. You can kind of take all the weight off that left leg, bring it back. We're going to do the same thing with the right leg. So bringing it up and forward, letting the right ankle and then that right knee come down to rest. We can now bring that back leg down to rest and then come down to the elbows if we're comfortable enough, if our spine is okay with it. From here, we're looking for medium tension, 5, 6, 7 maximum on the intensity scale here, and then we're breathing. Nice work, you guys. Nice work. Feel free to kind of close your eyes, find that zen. Just letting that right rear hip kind of stretch out after all the sitting that we've done so far today. Maybe you've been standing, but it's still good to stretch the rear hips out. Glutes are still working when we stand. All right, you guys, nicely done. So let's slowly make our way up, put some weight in the hands, put some weight into that back leg. We can kind of unweight that front leg, and then we can bring our knees down to the ground. Let's go ahead and bring the rest of our body down to the ground. We're gonna next go into something where we need to be in side lying. So we're lying on our sides here. What we're gonna get into next is some rotation. And from here, how we're gonna start is with the knees stacked up on top of each other, right around hip level. You can see a nice straight line from my hips down to my knees here, and the ankles are also resting on top of each other. We're gonna reach out in front, arms out nice and straight. And from here, you can kind of rest your head on the ground. You can keep it up. You can use a pillow or something to support yourself. But from here, we're gonna be opening up. So make sure you got some room behind you. What we're gonna do is that top hand is going to move, and we're gonna open up like a big book. And so as we open up, we wanna make sure we can follow that hand with our eyes, or our head, excuse me. So should be able to turn that head, follow the hand as much as you can, open up as much as you can while keeping the legs in the same place. And then we'll slowly start to close our book. Again, watching that hand all the way as we go. All right, guys, slowly start to move at your own speed. Again, this doesn't have to be fast. Feel free to pause in that outstretched position. Take a breath. You can feel how that kind of affects our rib cage, affects our spine, lets us stretch a little bit more on the exhale. Trying to breathe the whole way here. All right, wherever we're at, let's make this the last one on this side. Stretching all the way out, watching that hand all the way as we go. Closing that book one last time on this side. All right, guys, feel free to flip on over. I'm gonna flip myself around so you guys can stay looking at my front side. We're gonna do the same thing for the other side. So let's go through that kind of setup checklist real quick. Knees are stacked up on top of each other, hip level, nice straight line. Arms are outstretched in front of us, and we're gonna let that opposite arm move now, opening up like a big book. Looking at that hand all the way as we go. Stretching out as far as we comfortably can. Now, since we're only doing a few here, guys, it's important to notice that more or less, we're gonna be pretty stiff in these first few. So if you guys really wanna continue to make changes through the middle of the spine with this one, I highly advise doing 10 or 15 of these on one side per day. That's how we're gonna start to feel really, really loose. After 15 of these, even if you're moving nice and slow, you're gonna start to feel much looser than the first few. The first few are always gonna feel really stiff, feel a little rocky, and that's all right. No one's perfect. All right, guys, wherever we're at, let's do one more. Opening up, watching that hand. Taking a breath while we're outstretched. And then bringing it all the way back to close that book on this side. All right, you guys, good work. We got time for one more thing. Let's go ahead and slowly make our ways all the way up. Take a moment to come into kneeling, hands and knees, whatever works. And then we're gonna come all the way up into standing to end out this stretch break. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into some neck circles. All we gotta do is plant our feet, comfortable position, arms can relax down by the sides. Turn those tummy muscles on just to make sure the rest of the spine doesn't go anywhere. And we'll start with our chin on our chest, slowly trying to just draw the largest possible circle that we can with the laser pointer attached to our nose. Doesn't matter which direction we start in, we'll go for 3 rotations per side. It's important that the shoulders stay away from the ears here, guys. It might help to actively kind of reach down towards the ground a little bit as we bring our ear away from those ears, I should say. Might be some pops and some cracks. That's typically okay. What we don't want is big time pain. If we're feeling that, definitely advise stopping. Usually your body trying to tell you something is wrong. All right, guys, and so once you finish those 3 rotations, you can go the other way. Don't forget that breathing. This is not a hold your breath exercise. Good job, you guys. Wherever we're at, let's make this rotation our last. Breathing all the way and trying to end with the chin glued to that chest. All right, you guys, go ahead and bring that head up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. All the time I have left for this stretch break here today. If you guys are looking for what we got going on as the Exos team, I would highly advise checking out SharePoint. That's going to be our #1 kind of landing site for everything that we have going on: group exercise, programs, services, the whole 9 yards. Go check that out. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Elise.